Hello, welcome to Grid Live Wrap Up. Joe Samaniego here, and with me we have Alex Anderson from the Gay Racing Podcast, Ben Schneider from Grid Life Encore and NASCAR.info, and Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight. A big thank you to our investors, Colin, the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. They invest in us each and every month. You invest in us. You'll get some Grid Never stickers sent out to you. If you're watching us for the first time, you can do a super chat or buy me a coffee. We see it on the air. We'll thank you. $10 or more, and you'll get Grid Never stickers as well, too. And your name on the leaderboard. We'll thank you on there, and you can do a cup of coffee. Just mention who the cup of coffee is going to. And, of course, the easiest way to support us, hit the bell icon, subscribe to us right here on YouTube. We are less than 25 subscribers away from 1,000. That'll be a huge accomplishment for all of us here at the Grid Network, and a big thank you to all our viewers, and a big welcome to everyone tuning in after the NASCAR Cup Series race from Bristol Motor Speedway. Dylan, he's excited to talk NASCAR. Ben, Alex, I know we got a lot to talk about with NASCAR, the Food City 500, not on dirt for the first time in 4 years. Crazy when they said that. I was like, really, we've been on dirt that long? Didn't feel like it, to me at least. No. But we saw something that we haven't talked about in Bristol before, a tire situation, particularly tire management, because on a big level, we're talking more than Darlington, which we know is a tire track. We had not seen anything like this in a long time. The third stage, longest green flag stage of the race, and we saw cars blowing tires, making the pit stops, and then as the race was closing up, Josh Berry lost pace, other drivers. Denny Hamlin, he managed to somehow survive everything, hold off Martin Truex Jr., avoiding all the lap traffic, the slow traffic with tire issues, get the win. Only 5 cars on the lead lap. Mike Joy said that had not happened in 20 years. So, Alex, I got to start off with you. Denny Hamlin, now he got the win. He's in the playoffs. He still had enough tires to do a burnout on the front stretch, the back stretch, and come around to the front stretch again. How impressive was his win today?
Well, not even how impressive was Denny Hamlin's win. How impressive was this race? Like, oh my gosh, what a race. I mean, I've been a fan of NASCAR since I was a little kid. This felt like I was watching a race from the early 2000s. I had an absolute blast watching this. The tire management, you had guys slipping and sliding. These cars were so hard to drive. You had Ty Gibbs, who I don't think had really ever experienced a proper tire management race before, lead a ton of laps in this race. We're going to talk about him more later. But yeah, Denny Hamlin getting the win. He was my pick a winner. I was also picking him for my fantasy, for my podcast. Like, I had a feeling he'd win, but I didn't think it'd be this exciting of a race. Like, I was excited for Bristol Concrete to be back in the spring. But wow, did it exceed my expectations. I don't know exactly what they changed. I know Bristol has the intermediate package now instead of the short track package. But today, this tire Goodyear brought put on a heck of a show. And Toyota especially just really, really had the best tire management, it seemed. And the veterans. It was Keselowski, Truex, and Hamlin were 1, 2, 3 for quite a lot in this race. So, I mean, you needed to know how to save your tires. We haven't seen that in quite a long time. But yeah, Denny Hamlin comes out on top today. Just excellent drive from him and excellent battle holding off Truex at the end with all the lap traffic. Just so much positive to say about this race. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it was Jeff Gluck that actually pointed that out. The 3 oldest drivers in the field, Hamlin, Truex, and Keselowski, finishing 1, 2, 3 today. I don't think that was any coincidence. And I also pointed out as well, I know he fell back a little bit towards the end, like you were mentioning, Joe, but Josh Berry up in 4th there towards the end of the race. I mean, think of how experienced he is on short tracks. I know he's a Cup Series rookie, but, you know, how many late model races has he run on short tracks where he's had to take care of his tires? I think it was no coincidence that he was up there running towards the front at the end of the race as well. But totally in complete agreement with what Alex said. You know, we can't talk enough about how fantastic of a show that was. I've never prayed harder for a green flag run in my life. It was absolutely incredible watching these drivers do something that they haven't had to do in a really long time, manage their tires. And Denny Hamlin and Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole, really, there was one point where they were running first, second, third, and fourth. I picked Ty Gibbs to win this race for my pick a winner. I thought I was looking like I was going to be in pretty good shape there. And today might be the day that he gets his first win. But again, I know we'll talk about him a little bit more later. I'm sure his day's coming. But Denny Hamlin ran an absolutely phenomenal race and really put on a great show. And again, I'm sure the crowd had some detractors at the end of the race. It's going to be interesting to see if this influences the good race poll a little bit. The fact that one of the villains of our sport, I guess you could say, won the race. I hope it doesn't take it down that much. I think this race might set a new record on that poll. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Denny Hamlin thoroughly impressive today, and once again, we'll see. He's always been somebody that, the last several years we've talked about, like, is this finally going to be the year he breaks through and wins the championship? Still a long way to go, but the first step is done now. He's in the playoffs, assuming we don't have something even crazier happen and if we get more than 16 winners.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin, when he was standing up facing the crowd, we heard the boos. He just had his number one finger. There we go. Just looking. He didn't say he beat everyone's favorite driver again. He said he won, but he still embraces that villain role. And I have to agree with both of you. At first, I thought this could be a messy situation where it might be something like we've seen, I hate to say Indy 2008, but it improved, and it really made it to where this was a race, like you said, the experience from the veterans came into play, the drivers having to really manage the tires. Ty Gibbs, we'll talk about him later on, but we saw some faces and drivers up there that normally we wouldn't until the tires started to come apart and then they slow up. What an amazing race for Bristol. It was a surprise for me, for Denny Hamlin. I think a surprise for everyone. We had Ty Gibbs leading a Joe Gibbs race in 1, 2, 3, 4. They were even saying this could be the first time he's ever had all four finish like this, but that didn't turn out because Christopher Bell, tire issues, he fell back. Ty Gibbs, who won both stages, fell out. Hamlin in the playoffs now. Again, Toyota, they're looking good overall. Joe Gibbs Racing, they were up there. Legacy Motor Club, Eric Jones had a little bit of an up and down day, but John Hunter Nemechek, what a great day. Not exactly the greatest start to the year, but he was 16th in the points for a while. And 23-11, Bubba Wallace was up towards the front. The tires again ruined his day. Not Ty Gibbs, the other Monster Energy driver drink, Tyler Reddick, that early caution, stayed out, got bumped out of the way. That day pretty much ruined everything for him. So Ben, starting with you, after last weekend where Phoenix, we saw essentially Toyotas, they were looking good, and we were thinking this is the first race besides a mile and a half in the super speedway. Now with Bristol, Toyota, are they starting to look like the strongest manufacturer?
Yeah, I think so. And even the legacy cars, like you mentioned, Joe, John Hunter Nemechek had a great result today up in, sixth place, I guess, behind a couple of the Hendrick guys. And Gibbs as well. Like you mentioned, it's not very often that we see a team that in sync running first, second, third, and fourth, and even rarer still that we see them finish that way. And Gibbs ultimately couldn't pull that off today here. But would have been their first time. Of course, they've only been running that fourth car for the last decade or so with Carl Edwards coming in 2015. But just off the top of my head, I think I just watched Lionheart this week, which you should go stream on Max right now. Totally recommend. It's an excellent documentary. But I know Andretti Green did that in 2005 at St. Petersburg in the IndyCar series with Dan Weldon leading his three other teammates home in first through fourth. And I think Roush might have done it one time in the early to mid 2000s. And we know Hendrick did it a couple of years ago, Dover as well. But, very rare, but you see a team that in sync. Stewart-Haas Racing had a shot to do it, I guess, in Talladega in 2018. But, Toyota looked very, very strong today. Ultimately still had the top two finishers, and all four of the JGR cars look like they're in phenomenal performance shape right now. And, I think they're certainly primed to be making a strong run. We talked a lot about Chevrolet at the start of this year and how dominant they were, but Toyota has certainly announced their presence, and they look like they could be in prime contention to fight for a championship several months down the line as well.
Yeah, Toyota's in really good shape, especially on these short tracks. I'm curious that's going to translate over to the road courses, because the short tracks, road courses, they share a lot of similarities in a way. But when they go to Richmond here in 2 weeks, that's going to be really interesting if Toyota can keep up this strength and dominance on these tracks, such as a Phoenix, such as a Bristol. That's going to be a really key thing, because Richmond's kind of different from both of those, obviously. But yeah, Toyota is so impressive. I don't know what else to say, because like Martin Truex Jr. is normally not good at Bristol, and he was really good today. Denny Hamlin goes two in a row at Bristol. We're going to talk about Ty Gibbs. We've already mentioned him. Like, he's really coming into his own. He looked really good today. Just Toyota as a whole, I don't know if they're the strongest manufacturer by any means. I still think it's a pretty level field, but when you talk about just the short tracks, I think you got to say Toyota is definitely at the top there.
Toyota has to be up there. They're looking really good right now, especially after Phoenix and here. A couple comments in the chat room. Adam, that was insane and crazy. 54 lid changes. And Casey, was Bristol race the greatest race of the year you saw? I'm glad you asked that, Casey, because essentially the tire issues, I know a lot of people at first, like myself, probably were thinking, uh-oh, are we going to see something where there's going to be mandatory cautions? That didn't occur out. Goodyear, NASCAR, they gave everyone an extra set of tires. That seemed to really worked out, even though nobody has tires left to really go home with. Same track, same package, same car, same tire, different time of the year. Instead of the JP, they used the resin because in the event of wet weather, they thought there'll be a little bit more traction. But it's safe to say nobody predicted what was going to happen with the track just not rubbering in at all. Even drivers outside the resin, it was just not working out. We didn't have that mess like Indy 2008. So overall, Alex, how would you grade this race? Because we did have 54 lead changes, as Adam mentioned. A new record for short tracks, but not what you expect from Bristol out of all places, I would say.
I mean, on the grading scale, it's an A++. Maybe add another plus in there even. They get some extra credit. They get all this. Because, again, like it just blew my expectations out of the water. I did not expect this at all. It was a phenomenal race. But I want to talk about the tires really quick. Goodyear, please keep this tire. Do not go backward. Do not be more relaxed with the next tire if you're going to adjust it based on this race. Keep this one. Give them maybe another 2 sets or something, because it was just nearly a perfect race in terms of tire management. We have not had that in NASCAR like properly in 15 years. A lot of the field has never even done this. That's why the top 3 guys are the guys who have done it. In the last 10, we had a tire strategy consistently. We're the top 3 finishers today. It's so much fun to watch, and I saw a lot of fans on social media who are newer fans who didn't really get it, but it's just because they don't see this. They don't see this a lot, right? And I think that's fine, and I wish some people were less aggressive about it on social media, just because it's like these are new fans. They don't really understand the concept, honestly. But if it happened more consistently, it'd be really a positive for NASCAR, because this was just an all-around exciting race. You couldn't let your eyes get off the TV. So I am begging Goodyear to keep the tires as they are. Maybe give them another set or 2 so there's not concerns about running out of tires and everything. But keeping the risk of possibly running out if you over push your tires a lot. Just phenomenal race. And by the way, record number of lead changes, as someone in the chat mentioned. And would I say this is the best race ever? I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's definitely up there. This is a race in 10 years. I'm going to want to go back and rewatch it and be like, man, what a good day that was. I remember that day, where I was, what I was doing, everything. Just outstanding.
You know, Alex, I just came from Brock Beard's stream, and he's doing right now, and finishing up, and we had the moderators had to put somebody in a timeout because I assumed they were just trolling, but she was just going off about how this is a dying sport, and nobody cares anymore, and then somebody brought up, yes, a dying sport that had 19% viewership increase last week, and this user said, well, it was 44% in 2000, so I have to assume they were probably trolling. I hope they were, but I guess it's just proof that you can't please everybody. But to that point, if you vote no on the poll this week, I'm sorry, I still respect your opinion, but I don't know what more you're looking for. This was absolutely sensational. And the only question I have to ask is why did we bother pouring dirt on this place for 3 years in a row? And don't go back and dig up my old tweets, because I'm sure you can find me begging for a dirt race from 2018 to 2020. With the product that we got there today, I think that, this move back to 2 concrete races. And Joe, I know you guys were talking in the pre-race show yesterday. Could this track be in danger of losing its spring race if fans don't show up, if fans don't support this date? obviously everybody loves the Bristol night race, but the spring race has kind of lost its identity. And I think that's why we brought the dirt experiment to Bristol over the last few years, to try to make this race interesting again. But again, what we saw today was incredible. I'm totally with you, Alex. A++, as many plus signs as you want. I really don't know what more you can ask for from a race, unless you're the biggest Denny Hamlin hater in the world, or you have unrealistic expectations. That's the only way I can see you justifying a no vote on the poll this week. It was absolutely incredible.
And to follow up on, this is a dying sport and everything, yeah, we don't have 2005 ratings. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that point, and that's fine. Okay, it's perfectly fine. But this season, Phoenix was maybe a bit of a dud for a lot of people, but even that race wasn't bad. There has been, a big moment in every race this year. Every race has just been solid, and I don't recall as strong of a start to a finish for start of a season for NASCAR in many, many years. It might even be a decade plus that there has been this good of a start to a season for NASCAR. And by the way, 2019, 2020, NASCAR was not good, quite frankly, in my opinion. It was just not enjoyable to watch week in, week out. There were only maybe 6 races a year, maybe around 10, that were enjoyable. But now every single week feels compelling, and a lot of that has to do with the Gen 7 car and this new era of drivers coming in. I really feel like NASCAR has a new identity, and they're finally figuring out who they are again, and they're not trying to reach out and be something different. I know they have the playoffs bin, and you have opinions on that, but personally, I think the playoffs are finally starting to click for a lot of people, myself included. NASCAR's identity is truly the best it's been since the early 2000s. And I know the audience isn't there, but genuinely, I think the sport's in a great spot. And it's a great turnaround where it was heading in 2019, 2020, when nearly every race was a dud. And also on dirt, I think the Bristol dirt experiment, that should have started at the All-Star race, for one. 2, I wish it wasn't Bristol, so I'm glad we're back here and everything. But they needed to do something, so I totally understood it. Low attendance, all that. But I still do wish we did have a dirt race. And for me, I'd like it to be at Eldora for the All-Star race, personally. I'd like to see them at least try that. Make the All-Star race an experiment, or if they're going to keep doing retro races there, I'd say Eldora still counts, I guess. It's not retro for NASCAR terms, but lots of dirt racing history there. Anyway, all that's to say, NASCAR's in a good spot. Bristol, good. Dirt racing is not bad. Don't close the door on it.
Well, I'm still dying on the hill. I'll never be a fan of the playoffs, but I'm also
playoffs are good. Anyway,
well, we will agree to disagree. I understand that it makes the end of the season compelling. That's my philosophy. This sport. You saw it today. We had drivers running up front. That maybe had a faster car than the leader, but they just didn't manage their tires as well. But you can run over Justin Allgaier at Phoenix in Xfinity last week. Imagine if that happened in the fall. And I'm not a fan of the championship coming down in one race, but that's a discussion for another day. I just want to say to your point, Alex, as well, you brought up the TV ratings, and people know I'm a big game show fan, big reality show fan. I remember, going back in time, to when American Idol was bringing in 30 million a night, and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was bringing in 30 million viewers a night. Survivor, I think, peaked at 50 million its first season. Those are astronomical numbers that we're never going to see again, and that's not because those shows or other sports as well that have seen ratings declines. Some have been worse than others, and there's a lot of reasons to take into consideration there. But part of it is, part of what we're going to see next year with this new TV deal and streaming coming in is the audience. There's more cable channels than ever before. There's more streaming services than ever before. And when you have that, you have an audience more fragmented than you've ever seen before. And it's just, I think it's more of a byproduct of there being so many different options for people to pull from to get their entertainment. So the days of, and I think the 2006 Daytona 500, I think was, NBC had that race and it was during the Winter Olympics. I think they had a very strong lead in there. So I think that's the highest rated TV race for NASCAR of all time. We're never going back there again. Anybody who thinks that NASCAR won't be back until we get those numbers again, that goes back to the unrealistic expectations. But the ratings are up a little bit to start this year, and I think that's good. It's trending back in the right direction from where it has been the last several years. The Netflix hype has certainly helped. The fact that the same F1 driver has won 19 of the last 20 races certainly helps. And I certainly wish no ill will on Formula One and their business and everything. And I hope that they can get some more compelling races in the not too distant future with their changes coming in a couple of years as well. I don't root for them to fail or anything, but I think that has undeniably helped draw some more interest over to other forms of motorsport, and NASCAR is no exception there. So again, I still not a fan of the modern day gimmicks, and it's not just the playoffs. I would have liked to have seen a stage-free race today. I'd like to see a stage-free race every week. I don't like when races go into overtime. I'm still not a fan of the yellow line rule, but I'm not going to let all of those things, all those issues that I have with modern day NASCAR leave me in denial from the great racing and on-track products that we've seen to start the year. And again, I wasn't sure how we were going to top Atlanta and the finish that we saw there. This was absolutely sensational. And again, I can't say enough about that.
Can't say enough. A++. I'll go that route with you guys as well too. And one of the things, we saw a decent crowd there. We got to remember, Bristol used to be 150 plus, I believe, capacity wise. That was during the heyday of NASCAR when everybody wanted to get into that race. Now, I think with this product, honestly, give them a couple more set of tires. I'd rather have them have more tires and mess with the compound, because we didn't see this in the fall race. This was a surprise, but it was a pleasant surprise and it worked out really good. And I just think just added to where the strategy, the tire, everybody was just wondering what's going to happen. This was just a great race. The comers and goers, as we saw, Joe Gibbs racing, looked like they were going to be 1 through 4. That didn't happen. Alex Bowman sneaking in the top 5 finish. What an amazing day for him. So overall, just incredible. And this will lead up to a question for both of you guys. Best race so far, Bristol or Atlanta this year?
You want me to take that first, Joe? I guess, or
sure, yeah, why not?
I'm going to go with Bristol, and I think that the reason for that, and actually, I taped a podcast episode. I restarted my own personal podcast this week, so tune in tomorrow. Brock Beer was my first guest for that, and we talked about a video that he just posted this week, talking about a good finish versus a good race. And I do think Atlanta was a good race, but I think it was a great finish, and I think that maybe sort of swayed people's opinions of the race a little bit. Not to say that it wasn't a good race overall, but this was a great race and I think a great finish, a great green flag run all the way to the end, much longer than I think any of us expected today. So from start to finish, and again, we didn't really have, like, Atlanta, I think, got bogged down a little bit from cautions and attrition, especially the lap 2 accident that didn't take out, but involved almost half the field there. We didn't see anything like that today. I mean, it was for all the flat tires and tire concerns that we had, a very low attrition race. So, it was absolutely, again, I don't know what more you could have wanted from what we saw today, unless you like the wrecks or you, again, have unrealistic expectations of what you think a good race should be. I'm going to go with Bristol here. But again, Atlanta was great. Daytona up until the very end, which I know some people didn't like, but I thought the Daytona 480, if you will, was very good. And even Las Vegas and Phoenix, which I think had a couple of detractors and certainly could have been better, but they weren't all-time duds like we've seen the last couple of years with the last couple of packages there as well. I think it's been a great start to the year.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Ben. I think Bristol's a better overall race. Atlanta had the better finish, obviously.
Sure.
But, Bristol overall, this is just everything you'd want from a NASCAR race, I think. Hard racing, you had tire management, you had everything. I think Atlanta, there's still a little bit of improvement that could be done there personally. It's still fantastic, don't get me wrong. But this is the Bristol that I missed having, and we just haven't had in a long time. So yeah, I definitely Bristol.
Bristol, I say the better race, better finish. Atlanta 3 wide, you can't beat that. That's just, you don't get that very often. Maybe the next time that could happen, Talladega, but with that said, who knows the way NASCAR season's been going so far. It's been very exciting race after race. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Really going to be interesting to see what happens with Ty Gibbs. Now, Ben, I know you were predicting Ty Gibbs was going to be a potential winner for this race. He led 137 laps, second most today, only behind Denny Hamlin. Won both stages, and I was thinking, I think he's going to get it. He was looking really good. And then the tire gave up, and that just pretty much destroyed him and everybody that had tire issues late in the race. Lost the race. But here's the crazy part. His worst finish this year is 17th at Daytona. Since then, he has a top 10 finish streak, which includes essentially 2 top 5 finishes at Vegas and Phoenix, ninth place today, despite what everything had happened with his tire issue. How impressed are you with Ty Gibbs' performance so far this season?
I'm very impressed. And like you mentioned, Joe, I picked him to win the race today. I think he very easily could have won the race today if things had gone slightly differently, if he had had a little bit more experience like his teammates Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. had. But the entire Gibbs team, all 4 of their cars, like we mentioned, they all ran very, very strong today. And Ty was certainly no exception. Still comes away with a 9th place finish. Again, it's crazy to say there's only 5 cars in the lead lap. I mean, I love how much of an old school feel that this race had to it. But it may seem like a bit of a downer. You don't finish on the lead lap, but you still come away with a 9th place finish. I think it's still a very solid day that you can take away from this, and valuable experience that he gained as well. Who knows if we're going to get more races like this later this year or when we come back here in the fall. But Ty Gibbs is certainly showing that what he did in ARCA, what he did in Xfinity, that was no fluke. And again, I think it's really important that we give young rookies, especially at the Cup level, a little bit of time before we totally cast judgment on them. Ty, I think, has really taken a step forward this year. I was impressed, with several races that he had last year. And I think that he's in prime position to get his first win. I think at this point we can now comfortably say it's a matter of when, not if, we see Ty Gibbs in Cup Series victory lane.
I've been ringing the bell for a while now that Ty Gibbs is going to win a race this year. I've even said he could win 2 or more. Like, he is just getting better and better. This week or today, he just beat his own record, personal best record, of most laps led in a race, which was also at Bristol, his old personal best last year. He's going to win this year. And I know people don't like Ty Gibbs for multiple different reasons, for whatever reasons you have, but he's going to win a race. I know some detractors won't like that, but he's going to win races. He's going to contend for championships for years to come. And Bristol, the second one, is in the playoffs. If Ty Gibbs makes the playoffs, which I think he will, even on points, I think he's 3rd or something in points right now, he's going to make it. He could be a dark horse in the playoffs because he could win Bristol, and then he could just kind of point his way through. Who knows? A long way until we're there. But man, Ty Gibbs, he is just going to do a lot of great things. He's going to win a lot of races in Cup. And this is only his 2nd year. Like, look at guys like Austin Cindric, who have just kind of struggled in Cup so far. Just, big difference. Chase Briscoe as well. Both those Cindric and Briscoe dominated Xfinity as well. Ty Gibbs, only not a couple weeks into his 2nd full-time season, already far outperforming them. And that might have to do with the equipment as well. But he's going to win a lot. And I hope people are ready for it.
And just one more point to follow up on that, Alex. He's only 21. So not only is he, still not have a ton of Cup Series experience yet, but he's also very, very young. So, you look at how well he's running right now, to the point where we're predicting we might see multiple race wins for him this year. I think we might have a superstar in the making over JGR for sure.
Absolutely.
And like you mentioned, Ty Gibbs 3rd in the points right now compared to Austin Cindric 21st, well ahead. So Ty Gibbs off to a great start. Josh Berry, what a great race he had. I wasn't going to be 100% confident in him after qualifying. I thought he got up front, he might fall to the back. He was up there. The tire issues, that was something everybody had to deal with, including him. But Stewart-Haas Racing, they had 3 out of 4 cars in the top 15. Gregson all the way down to 34th. But we even saw Rick Rare Racing, both cars in the top 15. The 15 car, the 51 car, getting the tires. Front Row Motorsports, Todd Gillian. We saw Michael McDowell. The Fords, they were up there. For a while, we even only had where Kyle Larson was the only Chevy in the top 10, which was crazy. Blaney up front until the tires again. Logano, crazy to say this is his 2nd best finish of the year. 22nd place. Austin Cindric just struggling with the tire issues, and Harrison Burton, not a factor at all today. I have to ask you, Alex, Ford, it seems like they're really good at getting the poles. 4 out of 5 races, they've been on the pole, but should they be concerned at the race performances? They're just not closing the deals because they're still winless. Toyota 2 wins, Chevy 3 wins.
First of all, that Logano stat is crazy. His best finish is 22nd.
Second
And this
best.
is an even year. This is supposed to be like a good year for Logano statistic-wise, but he's had a lot of bad luck too, to be fair. But with Ford, Blaney has really been the only one who's been kind of good over there this year. I mean, Blaney was the points leader going into the day. He's not anymore, of course. And the 34 car, McDowell's been solid this year as well, but it's just closing it out and everything. I think Ford is still okay. They're definitely the weakest of the three manufacturers at this point, but I'm not like in panic mode with them by any means. But I mean, the 12 is definitely carrying Ford. I mean, easily, because Logano's having bad luck. Logano was leading at a point today as well. So I mean, it's not all bad, but it doesn't. The records don't show that. But yeah, if I'm Ford, I'm like, give it a few more weeks before I start think about hitting a panic button. But not ideal for only the 12 and maybe the 34 to really be super consistent. And also, RFK is starting to look a lot better as well. So there's some positives going on over at Ford.
Yeah, I mean, RFK third today with Keselowski, seventh today with Buescher. So, I mean, I think it's a matter of, hope it's a matter of when, not if, because Brad Keselowski certainly deserves it with all the effort that he's been putting in that organization, but that he breaks his long winless streak as well. He's knocking on the door of that just as much as Ty Gibbs is knocking on the door of his first one. But yeah, I wouldn't panic just yet if I'm Ford. I would maybe start asking some questions if I'm the 22 team, and I don't know. I don't have the owner's points up here in front of me. Maybe they need to be thankful it's not the top 35 era. I don't know how close they are to that bubble here, but to again, be, what was it, in the mid-20s here today and only be your second best finish of the year. That's crazy for a driver like Joey Logano. So I think, Penske might have some questions that need to be answered. Austin Cindric, again, not quite up to where we would have expected him to be at this point as well. You see Harrison Burton down there again. They're affiliate over the Wood brothers. I think there are certainly teams within the Ford camp that are going to have to be answering some questions here. But, again, Stuart Haas, I think, took a big step forward today as well with Josh Berry, and Rick Ware again. I mean, both of their cars had great runs given that team's history and where we have come to expect them to be. I think they've taken a big step forward in terms of what they're capable of and what we should be expecting of them. So I think that, there are certain teams within the Ford camp that probably need to start, looking at things, but I wouldn't say it's a manufacturer-wide situation yet. And also to your point, Joe, as well, they have the speed in qualifying. They've been really great at racking up poles. It's just a matter of getting to the end of the race this year. But I think finding the speed is the most important step there. They clearly have the speed. They just need to find a way to close the deal.
And also in the chat, Dylan McCollum makes a great point that Ford, we've had questions about this every year with this Gen 7 car. I know Ford has a new car, so does Toyota this year. But they've won the championship. Team Penske, the first 2 years with this car. So, I mean, it's definitely like a question right now, but also they're the only team who have won the championship with the Gen 7. So, I don't know. Ford is just very interesting in this Gen 7 era.
Very interesting. The only championship and winless still. It's such a long season, and the results are official. Text complete, so no issues. Denny Hamlin is your winner at Bristol Motor Speedway, which, as we've mentioned already, it will be in the playoffs, the last race in the round of 16. Now, we could imagine Goodyear, they said during that little press conference during the race that likely they're going to be testing, evaluating NASCAR as well on what happened and if they could improve it. But I got to say, when you look at Bristol and the history of here, before 1994, we had pavement, then they concreted. Then we had the one-lane concrete era from pretty much up to 2007. Then the multi-groove banking era where we saw side-by-side. It wasn't the old Bristol that fans liked. So then they made it back to 28 degrees of banking, where now the high line is the right one, it seems. The traction compound gets brought in. So then you see a race. Kevin Harvick said this at the beginning. He anticipated the race. Everybody in the bottom worked their way to the top as the rubber built in. That never happened. The rubber never built in, and it became a tire management race, which everybody seems to be overall positively responding to so far. So what direction should NASCAR and Goodyear go with? Do they just not make any changes and see what happened in the fall? will it be a repeat of last fall, or should they still look into it so we don't have a situation where everybody runs out of tires?
I'm tempted to say just leave it the heck alone and don't change anything because, again, what more could you have wanted out of this race? But it is going to be a different time of year. It is going to be under the lights, so I'm sure temperature is going to be a variable there as well. Again, it's very hard to predict this far out. So I wouldn't be opposed to sending a couple cars there to do some test runs and take the data and do with that whatever Goodyear thinks is best. But again, normally when we're seeing somebody from Goodyear interviewed in the middle of the race, it's usually not a good sign. I don't think, I think, again, if your favorite driver got, shuffled back because of, a tire issue that was worse than relative to the rest of the field, again, I can understand why you might not be too pleased with what we saw today. But if you're a neutral fan, again, I think this was absolutely incredible. It was on the limit of, what kind of tire we should be bringing to a racetrack in terms of how quickly it wears out and making tire wear actually matter again. And it led to one of the greatest races I've seen, certainly in my lifetime. Again, I won't speak for the entire 75-plus year history of the sport, but I'm hard pressed to think of a better race that I've ever watched live in my now 18 years following the sport full time. It was absolutely fantastic.
If anything, if they can make the make the track rubber in a bit, that'd be kind of nice, I think. But again, this was so good. It's do you really want to risk doing anything to it? But the thing that really boggles my mind here is that Goodyear says they didn't really do anything in between last year and this year. The biggest difference was that they didn't use PJ1, they used resin on the track, and that seems to have apparently messed with the tires on this track. And maybe it's the weather as well, because we haven't run Bristol this time of year on the concrete in several years now. So maybe just a multitude of those things, and when we go back in the fall, it's not going to be like this. I don't know. It's kind of bizarre. But personally, I would say they could maybe do a test or something if they wanted to try and get some rubber back into the track, because I think that would be nice. But I'm happy. I even thought last year's Bristol race in the night race was just fine. So I think it's fine as is. But if they wanted to do anything, more rubber in the track would be good.
I'm almost leaning towards the idea of don't do anything, see what happens, because this is the same setup we had last fall. And fall, if for some reason, the track's now rubbering in, well, now the teams are going to be better prepared of how to strategize for this race. I think we'll get a similar race. You just won't have all of a sudden cars dropping off towards the end, running until they're flat. But I think we could get another exciting Bristol race.
And if they put resin on the track again in the fall, they'll know for sure if it's the weather or not, or if it's the resin versus PJ1. Then they'd really get a more proper answer if they just left it all alone. So I think that would be good.
And of course, that's going to be a while till the NASCAR Cup Series return to Bristol. Very exciting race weekend. And of course, this was just one of 3 very exciting races. We'll bring Kobe in because I think one of the races of the weekend occurred in Florida where we had the Sebring 12 hours. What a race. What a finish. Ben, lead us into IMSA Sebring 12 hours.
Yeah, Joe, the world of motorsports did not let us down this weekend. IMSA was great. NASCAR obviously was great. And Formula E had a fantastic finish as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But as for right now, let's get into the Mobil 1 12 hours of Sebring. We saw intense battles throughout the field, especially in the GTP class, which came down to the final minutes of the race. Now, Chip Ganassi Racing's number 01 Cadillac, driven by Sebastian Bourdais, battled with number 40 Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Acura of Luis Delatraz for the overall win. Bourdais and Delatraz raced each other aggressively, making contact several times, with Delatraz ultimately coming out on top. This is a big win for WTR Andretti. Acura, Delatraz, Jordan Taylor, and Colton Herta in the team's second race as a 2-car effort. So, Kobe, we'll start with you. Did this prove that Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti won't be slowed down by the expansion? And what did you think of that fantastic finish we saw?
Ben, I'm actually going to start off by saying I'm actually upset about pick a winner because for the Rolex 24 Daytona, which team did I pick? The number 40 Acura. They did not win. And for the 12 Hours of Sebring, which team did I pick? The number 10 Acura did not win. And look which one won. So I'm like, my goodness, I picked the wrong Wayne Taylor
I was
racing
right there
car.
with you. I picked the 10 team as well.
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect to see the number 40 win this soon, but I expected if any Wayne Taylor racing car won, it would be the number 10 with Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, and Brendan Hartley, because they have the chemistry, they have the experience of working together on all of this. While this number 40 team is brand new to the Wayne Taylor racing with Andretti operation, but with the driver lineup they have Louis Delatraz, Jordan Taylor, and Colton Herta, couldn't go wrong there because those are three extremely fast drivers, and this absolutely proved that WTR Andretti won't be slowed down at all by the expansion to a two-car effort. I think WTR Andretti could potentially win several races this year, and it was just overall a really strong drive at them. And the finish of the race, that was absolutely spectacular between Bourdais and Delatraz. It kind of reminded me of a stock car race there at the end because they were leaning all over one another. They made contact several times, but ultimately kept it clean. It kept it clean. And, they say rubbing is racing, and that's exactly what we saw. So good kudos to Bourdais and Delatraz there for racing hard, clean, and fair, and thought it was another great addition out of the Mobile One 12 Hours of Sebring. Whenever I think that a Sebring 12 Hours cannot be topped, it just keeps delivering. I thought last year's was great, and the year before that, and the year before that, but somehow this year's Sebring, it seemed to be the best one that I've ever seen. And when we come back next year in 2025, it's probably going to be even better than what we saw this year.
I hope they never repave Sebring because, like, what a track. I love Sebring. Wow, what a race. But Andretti, whenever he gets involved in something, he's going to put his full effort into it, which is why it should have been an F1. But we don't talk about that. But IMSA, Wayne Taylor Racing Andretti, just, I'm not surprised at all that they didn't slow down. I think having a second car is good for them because now they're getting more data in between two different cars, and it's probably making them stronger overall. And I forget which one of you said it, but I didn't expect them to get a win this fast either. But it was good. I'm not surprised, but this car was really strong in Rolex as well. But man, that battle at the end between Louis Delatraz and Sebastian Bourdais was so much fun. I was yelling at my TV. I don't get amped up like that too often, but I was yelling, I was shouting. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, in the dark. Like, I can't believe it that we watched that. That was so cool. But no, I'm not surprised that Andretti is seeing success with the second team for Wayne Taylor Racing. And just amazing race. IMSA. So good.
Yeah, they certainly never fail to deliver, and I think one of the more underrated racing series that we have here in America. Every time I tune in, I've got to confess, I'm a more casual IMSA viewer in terms of being able to follow the series full time and knowing all the top teams, drivers, and names in all the different classes. But I am thoroughly engaged and impressed every time I turn the race on. It seems like we get a couple of thrilling battles all throughout the field at the bare minimum, and this weekend was no exception. Now, we certainly saw an action-packed race, and let's talk about something a little bit more serious here. We had one of the scarier incidents we've seen in IMSA in a while here with the number 31 Action Express Racing Cadillac. Pippo Durrani was leading the race overall, and then tried to overtake the number 21 AF Corsa Ferrari with Miguel Molina behind the wheel. The Cadillac and the Ferrari made contact. That sent Durrani spinning off track into the tire barriers and flipping over, scattering debris on the other side of the barrier. Thankfully, Durrani walked away from the crash and said he's thankful that it's 2024 and not the 1960s. And absolutely, to Adam's point as well, glad to see him walk away from that frightening accident. So, Kobe, the fact that Durrani was able to walk away, let's talk about that here for just a moment. What does that say about the safety of these GTP cars? And, to that point, did Action Express seem like they were going to be the team to beat before that accident?
And I will say, I totally agree with Pippo Durrani about, being thankful that it's 2024 and instead of 1960s, because I have a feeling if it was 1960s, Pippo Durrani wouldn't be here today. And I'm very thankful, that IMSA, Cadillac, everyone who worked so hard to continue improving the safety of these race cars was able to produce a very safe tub for Pippo Durrani, where he's able to have that type of impact, flip over on his roof, and be able to walk away to race another day. So Pippo is definitely count all his blessings there. And also wanted to point out it's very strange in sports car racing how some of the the biggest crashes we've seen always happens to involve a prototype and a Ferrari. I think back to the time Anthony Davidson flipped his Toyota at Le Mans, hit a Ferrari, and then Alan McNish when he had his scary crash at Le Mans, also involving a Ferrari. I just thought that's really strange. That always seems like it's a Ferrari and a prototype whenever we have these really scary crashes. And to answer the second part of that question, it did seem like Action Express, was in the driver's seat to potentially, I'm not going to say run away with it, but up until this point, they were obviously the class of the field, strong driver lineup, Jack Aiken, Tom Blomqvist, Pippo Durrani. It really seemed like if anyone wanted to have a chance to win in 12 Hours of Sebring, they had to go through Action Express. And once Action Express was out of the race, it really seemed like this is when the race opened up and everyone else had a chance. But I'm sure Action Express is going to be able to come back from this, and we'll see them back in the fight in just a month's time when we get on the streets of Long Beach.
Now let's talk about Lamborghini as well. Lamborghini ran its second ever race with the SC63 prototype at Sebring after finishing a disappointing 14th in the WEC season opener in Qatar. However, number 63, Lamborghini's IMSA debut was much smoother with a 7th place finish and on the lead lap after all 12 hours. Now, Andrea Caldarelli, Matteo Cairoli, and Roman Grosjean were never in the fight for the win, but they still managed to get a respectable result. So, again, going back to you, Kobe, how would you rate the start of Lamborghini's prototype program?
Well, you can't always expect a manufacturer to come out firing and being in contention for the win. Sometimes it takes a little while to get going. And like you said, Ben, it's just their second ever race in its prototype. So considering the fact, that they were able to arguably go to one of the toughest racetracks in the world at the 12 Hours of Sebring, like Alex was saying, hopefully they never repave this. You see teams come to Sebring and run like 24-hour, 36-hour endurance tests because of the bumps to try to get the reliability of your car in line. And for the Iron Lynx Lamborghini team to make it to the end of 12 hours and finish on the lead lap, I think that is a massive accomplishment. Obviously, the World Endurance Championships is over in Qatar didn't go how they wanted, but I think they have to be very pleased with how the result at Sebring went. And if you survive at Sebring, you can really survive anywhere, and that's going to be very exciting to see what Lamborghini does as a prototype as they continue to develop. I know they were very fast in off-season testing at Daytona, and a lot of people thought Lamborghini could come in and be a strong competitor while they weren't, like you say, while they weren't in the fight for the win. They were certainly there. So if something had happened to some of the other GTP cars, they could have potentially stolen a few more spots in the overall finishing order. But I think Lamborghini certainly has to be very pleased with how things are going. Although it's a little concerning that the head of Lamborghini Motorsport, recently left Lamborghini. So that's a story we're definitely going to be following here at Grid Network and all around the sports car racing world.
All right, we move on now to LMP2. The same winners from Daytona took home the checkered flag at Sebring. The number 18 Arab Motorsports prototype starts off 2024 with 2 wins for Ryan Dial, Dwight Merriman, and 17-year-old Connor Zilich. Now, let's focus on Zilich here for just a moment. The Trackhouse Racing development driver has continued an impressive showing of winning in various disciplines. We'll see him debut in the Truck Series next weekend at Circuit of the Americas, and he'll also run a few Xfinity Series races later this year as well. So, Alex, we'll go to you first for this one. After winning at Daytona and Sebring, his first start in both of those crown jewels, should Zilich pursue a seat at Le Mans to potentially sweep the endurance racing Triple Crown this year?
Why not? Like, he has good luck and he has the talent. I mean, why not? He is going to be a star in whatever he does, whether that's NASCAR, as you said, he has that deal with Trackhouse. If he wants to stay in sports cars or something, he's going to be a star there. This kid's got talent, only 17 years old, and he's won 2 of the biggest sports car races on the planet that people try to win for decades and never do it. So cool, so impressive. 17 years old, he's not even like a legal adult yet, and he has done career-defining things, and his career is just starting. So, yeah, should he try it if he can get a ride? Absolutely. Like, I think that'd be so cool. But even if he doesn't want to do it this year, he's only 17. He can do it in like 10 years and he'd still only be 27. I mean, why not? He can do it anytime in the next 20 years and he could he has so much time to do it. So it's just like, he'll eventually get there probably. But yeah, Connor Zilic, he's going to be a star for years to come. I'm so excited to see how his career pans out.
You said that extremely well, Alex. And like you're saying, only 17 years old, and he's won 2 crown jewel events that drivers, race into their 50s, and they still haven't won. And whether it's overall or just a class win at any point of their career. So to say that, I have my Rolex watch from winning the Rolex 24, and I've won the Mobile 112 hours of Sebring, that's a massive accomplishment for this young kid. And regardless of what path he goes down, whether it's sports cars, whether it's stock cars, or if he decides to dip his toe into open wheel racing, I think he's certainly, one of the biggest highly touted prospects that we've seen in quite some time, especially, from the United States. Zilic was the first American to win an FIA kart and a championship, which is, very, very impressive within itself. And then to win these 2 races at Daytona and Sebring, he has a lot of really good things going for him. And if it fits into his schedule, why not try, to get the Triple Crown this year to win Daytona, Sebring, and Le Mans? And looking at the Le Mans entry list, there's still quite a few LMP2 seats available. So if a team, really wants a very fast driver to go in their car, I would give Connor Zilic a call, because he certainly has what it takes to get the job done. And as you saw at Daytona, and especially Sebring, they chose him to close the race. And when a team in sports car racing chooses you to close out a race, it shows how special you are as a race car driver, because not everyone gets chosen to finish a great endurance race. And I know at Daytona, Christian Rasmussen, the IndyCar rookie, and then Zilic, they were in there at the end, and then Zilic had the honors of taking it to the checker flag at Sebring. It just shows you how people think so highly of him. And it's going to be very exciting to see what he does next in his motorsports career. Like I was saying, regardless of what discipline he decides to stick with long term, he's going to be a star in any of those series.
Just want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that Ken Miles won the Triple Crown in 1966. Nothing you say will change my mind there. Go watch Ford versus Ferrari, another great movie, if you haven't seen it already. Now, let's talk about GTD real quick, and then we'll move into Formula E. But the battle for the win in GTD Pro was settled in the final 20 minutes between the number 14 Vasser Sullivan Lexus and the number 62 Rizzi Competizione Ferrari. Jack Hawksworth's number 14 Lexus made a move on Daniel Serra's number 62 Ferrari to give Vasser Sullivan the class win, with co-drivers Ben Barnicoat and Kyle Kirkwood. Now, GTD was won by the number 57 Winward Racing Mercedes of Philip Ellis, Russell Ward, and Indy Donch. IMSA returns to action on April 20th with GTP and GTD in action at the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. Kobe, Alex, any final thoughts on IMSA before we move into Formula E?
Please watch IMSA. It is always a banger. It never misses. It is just such an underrated series, motorsports series. And I wish I had gotten into it sooner. I've always watched the Rolex 24, but now I try watching every endurance race. It just never disappoints me. It's so fantastic.
Yeah, like we were saying on the Grit Tonight shows, for many months leading up to the GTP era, we said sports car racing is entering a golden age, and this is now the time to get into it. And after the racing we've seen, the last couple of years or so into this era, I think we can confidently say, that we were right. We are entering a golden era of sports car racing, and to show you how healthy sports car racing is, we'll talk more about this on Grit Tonight this coming Wednesday. IMSA released its schedule for the 2025 season in the middle of March. That shows you how healthy the series is right now. You don't usually see IMSA announce the schedule towards the late summer, early fall. That's when you typically see IMSA announce their schedule. Most racing series will wait till later on in the year, deep in the summer, early fall. But for IMSA, in the early spring to announce that we're all set for 2025, I think that's a big deal, and it speaks volumes. And you have teams and other manufacturers who are interested in coming, current teams that are wanting to expand. It just shows you how healthy sports car racing is right now. And that just doesn't include IMSA. It also includes the World Endurance Championship as well. The LMGT3 class and the hypercar class, they're both as equally strong. So if you can catch some great racing on both sides of the Atlantic.
Yeah, great time to be a sports car fan for sure. We move on now to Formula E and the ABB Formula E World Championship, returning to Sao Paulo for the Sao Paulo E-Prix. A lot of people were talking about the exciting finish for third place, which was three wide, and saw Oliver Rowland take it from Jake Dennis and Pascal Verline. But for the win, with 2 corners to go on the outside, Sam Bird made an incredible move to take the lead away from Mitch Evans. Evans attempted the crossover at the final corner, but didn't have anything for Bird, who took his first win in the series since 2022, and the first win for McLaren, and a double podium as well for Nissan as they supply the McLaren powertrain. We'll bring Joe back in here for this, but Kobe, we'll go to you first here. How surprised were you to see Sam Bird bring home the win and Nissan have 2 cars on the podium?
Like I said on our private chat, the Birdman is back. and I did not expect to see Sam Bird up there fighting for the win. I felt like Sam Bird, had a lot of pressure on him this season to perform for McLaren, especially since we've seen him drop off a lot in his form. But for him to come out here, and perform the way he did, he looked like the Sam Bird of old. That Sam Bird who was always up there fighting for wins on a weekly basis and fighting for the championship year after year. I don't know where this Sam Bird has been the last few years, but it's certainly a good sign that he can be back. And if he can do this on a more consistent basis, I think the rest of the competition should be a little concerned about Sam Bird, because this was such an impressive drive and an impressive move on the outside of Mitch Evans. That was one of the most impressive overtakes I've ever seen in my time of watching Formula E. I thought that was perfectly executed. And just overall a great win for McLaren and for Nissan to get on the podium as well, especially the powertrain. I think it speaks volumes of how much the Nissan powertrain has improved over the offseason. I know usually when we're talking about Formula E, we're always talking about the Porsche powertrains and how great they are. But look at Nissan. It seems like Nissan has a really great powertrain as well. So maybe Porsche will have quite a bit of competition as the season moves on.
The competition between Porsche, Nissan, everybody is essentially going to be stepping up. And I think this race really showed the potential that Sam Bird still has with McLaren. I honestly thought Sam Bird, he becomes the oldest race winner in Formula E history with this race win. I really thought when he was going to be with this team, it was going to be 1, maybe 2 years. I didn't have confidence that he would get a win. Jake Hughes was my prediction to get a win for McLaren, but he was just stellar. And this is, like you said, Kobe, the Sam Bird of old, where we saw a great move at the end. That was just brilliant. Set up Mitch Evans. Mitch Evans said he had nothing left. Wasn't going to just push him too wide, but at the point when Sam Bird got around him, it was like, man, you could not really, unless you purposely took out Sam Bird, you probably still get some sort of penalty. Great racing by the two, and Sam Bird has to feel super pumped up. He got the win. All the people that may have been doubting him, especially with Jaguar, such a while without a win. Now to come here, get McLaren their first Formula E win, I think that's going to be huge. Something that McLaren will always have in the record books. Their first win came thanks to Sam Bird. And Sam Bird, I think this has to feel almost like rejuvenated, that he's going to come back stronger in Tokyo the following race week and potentially be a championship contender, which would be great, because Sam Bird, I feel, is one of the popular drivers, a driver that a lot of people can name when it comes to Formula E. If he's doing well, I think that's just going to be more for his fans to follow Formula E and better for the sport.
Yeah, one correction just real quick. I went back and checked. It was actually even longer than I said. It was, I believe, July 11th, 2021, the last time that Sam Bird got that previous Formula E win in New York City. And just to speak on Sam Bird, personally here, just for a little bit, he was really the first Formula E driver that I gravitated towards as a race fan when I went to the inaugural New York City race in 2017. He absolutely dominated that weekend, and unfortunately, he's never quite been able to close the deal on a championship and has had a couple of down years. But absolutely fantastic to see him standing on the top step of the podium again, and a great victory for McLaren as well. Really showing how strong they are across all of the different motorsports series and disciplines that they compete in nowadays as well. Now let's talk about Nick Cassidy here for a moment. His first DNF, interestingly enough, the last time Cassidy didn't finish on the podium was a DNF in London, which cost him the Formula E World Championship. Because of the DNF, his lead has now shrunk to 4 points over Verline. 7 drivers could leave the next round in Tokyo with the points lead. So, Joe, back to you first here for this. How big of a blow is this for Cassidy's confidence, and is it game on now for the rest of the field as we get into the heart of the Formula E season here?
It's definitely game on. I think everyone, especially after the strong finish he had, besides the first DNF at London, which essentially gave the championship to Jake Dennis, a lot of people just anticipate, okay, he's going to be with Jaguar, not the customer team of Envision, but the Jaguar powertrain. He got that win. He's been on the podium every race. This looks like could be a runaway. Then he has this, DNFs. He has a streak of he's either podium or DNFing. That's not going to last forever. I think everyone, this is a big break to pounce on this opportunity. We're going to Tokyo. That's going to be, I think, a crazy race for everyone. I think this is the opportunity to say, hey, we could catch up. We could beat Nick Cassidy. He is not unbeatable. I think this has to be a huge break, probably for Pascal Wehrlein. It seemed like Nick Cassidy could just put this together another run. That's not going to happen. He is within reaching the points lead. I mean, really, if if Pascal Wehrlein had gotten that win, we'd be talking about a different points leader right now. Overall, this is a huge moment, I think, for Nick Cassidy and the Jaguar team, because the Jaguar team, they could have easily had a win through Mitch Evans, still feel pretty good. For Nick Cassidy, though, one of the things I kept thinking about, especially as the race was playing out, was he could almost just point his way top 5 or better and just be that consistent, because Formula E is always chaotic. The DNFs, well, now he got the DNF. He cannot have a lousy qualifying session. He has to be up front, try to stay ahead of the pack. I think this just makes his championship march a little bit harder, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he responds in Tokyo. If he's still the same confident driver, or is he going to feel a little bit more pressure? Because now everybody's within striking distance. 7 drivers could leave with the championship lead in Tokyo. That's just amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And I don't really have too much more to add, but I will say I don't think this is going to be a huge blow to Nick Cassidy's confidence at all, because, I think every single season you're due maybe 1, 2, or even 3 DNFs at the very least. So I think Nick Cassidy and Jaguar team can just, think of this race as just a throwaway. Yeah, things didn't go our way today, but we can just brush this aside and move on to the next one, because looking at Nick Cassidy's finishes to start off the season, he had nothing but podiums until we got to Sao Paulo. So I think it could be an easy reset for Nick Cassidy to keep this to restart this podium streak and remain consistent. And he could very well be walking away with the championship at the end of the year, but obviously still very early on. But in terms of confidence, I think it's going to give the rest of the Formula E field a lot more confidence heading into the next round. That'd be like, maybe we still have a chance to take down Nick Cassidy and win this championship. Formula E is very competitive. This championship still has a long way to go. And like you were saying, Joe, I think multiple drivers are going to have a say in this before it's all said and done. And it's definitely game on for the rest of the field. Looking forward to seeing how this season shapes up.
All right, let's talk about the overall race here real quick. It played out as many anticipated, a bit of a Peloton style race, if you will, but with the corners and narrow straights, not the big packs that we might have expected. However, the racing picked up after the safety car periods, and drivers were flat out from there. So, Kobe, did the race improve after the 2 safety car periods, and was the power reduction compared to last year a good move?
Yeah, I think we saw quite an improvement after the 2 safety car periods. You didn't really see the drivers, focusing so much on energy management, and typically, that's when it's not as intense. But when they were able to go flat out, didn't really have to worry about saving. That's when you saw the intensity pick up, and you saw the overtakes, and obviously the very exciting finish between Mitch Evans and Sam Bird. I think it certainly improved the racing, and in regards to the power reduction, I do think that was a great move.
Overall, I felt the racing was really much better once the 2 safety car periods and you didn't have to worry about energy management. I know everyone was talking about Portland and how it was very exciting to watch because they were on a big group in the wide track. It didn't really seem to work that much in the first part, where people were still trying to save the energy, conserve the energy for the finish. But with the narrow straightaways, the sharp corners, everyone got spread out. I just felt like it was a little lackluster. We saw passes here and there. I mean, we saw drivers like Nick Cassidy was working his way up towards the front until he crashed. Sam Bird was up there. But yeah, after the 2 safety car periods, and then it was like, okay, full speed ahead. I really think this is when we saw some of the best racing this year so far, formally. We know Mexico City wasn't exactly the greatest. Diria didn't exactly pan out like a lot of people anticipated. This one, and especially the finish where you had the 3 wide for third place, Sam Bird with 2 corners to go, going from second to first on the outside. This was just phenomenal stuff. I think Formula E should consider the parallel and the type of racing they want to have on the track. Do they want to have more of the pelotons, or allow races where, okay, energy management is not the key priority and we can have some more flat out racing? I think that proved it could deliver a good race either way. But overall, I thought the racing was better after we saw the safety cars.
All right, we'll leave it there. Formula E is back in a couple of weeks in Tokyo for their next week. In the meantime, Kobe, let's hand it back over to you for our one shining moment.
Yeah, time for our grid one shining moment. And in the chat below, please let us know what's one moment that stood out to you most from this racing weekend. To bring in Alex back on, and so I'll let you go first. Alex, what's your one shining moment?
This might just be obvious, but how do you not give it to NASCAR at Bristol? Like the entire race. That is the shining moment of the weekend. You can give it to IMSA for their amazing finish too. Like there's a lot of different places you could go with one shining moment. But I have to give it to the entire Bristol race. Like that was just so much fun. Probably going to be a race of the year contender come season's end. That's my shining moment, 100%.
I would have to say that is my shining moment as well. I will give a shout out though to Sam Bird on getting that win. I thought he was not going to go winless. Done for. Prove me wrong. Prove the doubter wrong. Sam Bird.
Yeah, I'll just steal both of your guys' one shining moments there, because that was going to be my number one and my number two. I can't really think of a third one off the top of my head, although IMSA had great racing as well. But the entire weekend for NASCAR Cup, I think, what more can you say about the race? Like I've said countless times here on this show, Alex, race of the year. I think it might be a race of a decade contender. We might look back on this, in many years' time as one of the best races of the 2020s. And Joe, to your point as well, Sam Bird, great to see him get that win and enjoy some success again in Formula E. Those are great one shining moment picks, and I'll share both of them with you here as we close out the show.
And I'm just going to give my one shining moment to the entire racing weekend, because how rare is it that every single race that we saw, what was basically a banger, all of them were spectacular. IMSA saw great racing from start to finish, especially at the end in the GTP class. All race long, thought they put on a really great show. Bourdais and Delatraz, really great battle there. Formula E in Brazil, Mitch Evans, Sam Bird, that was such a spectacular move on the final lap with just a couple of corners to go. And like you said, Joe, I also thought Sam Bird was done for, but like he's gonna race at McLaren, then he's gonna be out of Formula E, and he's probably gonna have to turn over to sports car racing to finish his racing career. So prove me wrong once as well. Happy to see Sam Bird get back on his feet. And then NASCAR as well. That was an old school stock car race today. Great race throughout. Watching the drivers manage their tires, and see Dylan there saying "Slay of the Week" is Bristol. Absolutely, really enjoyed watching the old school stock car race today in Thunder Valley at the last great Coliseum. And Dylan also says a goated Bristol race. Totally agree with that. 3 great races this racing weekend. I don't know if we'll say that again this racing season.
Hopefully we have a lot more races this weekend. Well, this season, a lot more race weekends this season where we're going to be saying every race was great, because if the racing's great and the fans are turning out, everyone's happy. We want to thank all of our investors that help us keep on the air. They get the stickers. If you want stickers, invest in us. Colin Show, Mark Robin, David Matty, thank you for investing in us each and every month. We're going to be at a Thermal Club. We're very excited. We're sending one of our team members there. We'll have more information in the coming weeks. And, of course, buy me a coffee. Big thank you to Jason. He leads the leaderboard. If you want to overtake him, super chat, buy me a coffee. If you're not watching us live, you'll see the thanks button. That's how you can contribute. And hit the bell icon. Subscribe to us right here on YouTube. We are less than 25 subscribers away from 1,000 from just Kobe and I on Grid Tonight during the pandemic to here we are now with a wonderful team that we're so excited to be with on the air each and every week. Big thank you to everyone for believing in the Grid Network and watching us grow. And of course, a busy race weekend. I know, Alex, you're going to have the Gay Racing podcast recording and episode. Check them out, Spotify and YouTube. Ben, you're going to have Grid Encore tomorrow. the Truck Series at Bristol, and then Kobe. Grid tonight. Ben and I will join Isha for the Women in Motorsports, and then we'll do it all over again with Grid Life pre-race and the wrap-up show. And coming soon, we're getting to that point. There will be an After Dark episode of Grid Live, so be sure to subscribe. Don't miss any of our programs right here on the Grid Network. For Alex, Ben, and Kobe, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.